So I am really, really pleased to welcome the lovely Mavis Karn to the podcast, Courage Dear Heart. It's Charli talking. I'm live streaming into my Facebook group as well. So welcome, Mavis.
Thank you.
It's brilliant to see you again. I know that you very kindly did a group coaching call for my circle group, which was really well received and very popular. So thank you for that. My first question to you, which is what I ask everyone, which is because my podcast is called Courage Dear Heart, I wondered what courage meant for you.
Courage. I think it's just doing the right thing no matter what.
Have you got an example of that for yourself in your own life?
Well, I suppose it's a small thing, like when you have kids and you need to do something for them that is the right thing, even though they won't like it.
Yes.
You do it anyway and hope they'll get over it, but you do it anyway. Politically or universally, I mean, can't you just see all the people in the world that are afraid to do the right thing now because they might lose their job, or they might not make enough money, or they might whatever, they're imagining disasters if they do what they know is the right thing to do, so they scare themselves out of doing it. I've done it. I can't give you an example of it because it was probably quite some time ago, but I know I've done it. Or stand up for someone that other people don't like, but you know is a fine person. Do it anyway. It's just, I didn't always think it was that simple, but once I realized how we're always making choices, even when we don't know we're making choices, And I just think if we have done anything about learning how to know what the right thing is, just ask yourself, what's the right thing? And you listen, you know. And then if you scare yourself about that, well, yeah, but what if this and what if this? It's like, shh, what's the right thing? And then just do it. I just think that always pays off.
That's an interesting point, because a lot of the women that I work with, they'll say to me, maybe it's like, I just don't know the difference between my common sense, my wisdom, and like my intellect, like feels really like I should be doing this, but I'm just not sure. And so then there's all this debate, inner debate and inner thinking about, is this right or is this wrong? Is this wisdom? Is this my, just my monkey brain? Like for me,
who hasn't had that dilemma?
But I know, right?
That's familiar. Welcome to the human race.
Yeah, exactly. Being human is a guest house.
Yeah. It's just, once you get a handle on how you're made, you don't make decisions about what's right or wrong by using your personal intellect. You just, you have to have at least an indication that you have a deeper intelligence that's got this all figured out, that just knows. And you have that whether you think you do or not, whether you believe you do or not. It isn't something you earn or you get paid for or that's hiding. It's it's the wisdom and the common sense, the genius of all of creation. You're made of that. It's not like you're made of some other thing. And other people are made of wisdom, but not you. You didn't, you stepped out of line when they were handing that out. No, you're made of it. It's already taken care of. You just, there's a feeling to coming from who you really are, coming from your wisdom. There's a feeling to that. It's clean. It's ah, it's it's like you bring your shoulders down from under your ears. It's um, obvious, just obvious, it's just simple.
So, what would you say to someone who is new to this understanding, or new to like you or me, and they heard you say in this podcast, you're made of wisdom, you're kind of made of magic? Like, what does that mean for someone who's like, what do you mean I'm made of wisdom? What does that mean?
Well, let me give you an example, because I don't think it's magic. I just think that's what we call things we don't know how to explain to ourselves. But I think it's all science. It's all the divine physics. It's just, we're never going to be able to explain this, how everything comes about, ever.
Mm.
Um,
I love that you call it divine physics. I just think that's a really incredible, succinct description to me.
well, it is to me. I'm sure someone could listen to that and go, right. But it, it's like, it's the divine physics of us and everything else.
Yeah.
Um, for instance, just this one little thing, just tiny little thing. Like if we're looking right now, everybody that's on this, if they have the gift of sight, they are looking at something. And if they want to look at something different, they just with intention, they look at something different. And just with that intention, they change the aperture on their lens in their eye. What? That's astonishing. Don't you think?
Yeah, I do.
That's astonishing. And that's just one of the capabilities one human being has out of gazillions of them. We can, for instance, um, bring forth a memory. We can bring it up, or we can put it back in the library. We can think about it or not think about it. And we're making those choices all the time, even if we don't know we are. But we can also, every single human being is made so that they can receive a thought that didn't come from their brain. I never thought of that.
Mm.
Click, 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 pieces fall together and see something. How does that work? But I've heard a lot of artists, musicians, painters, and so forth. Um, like I remember in an interview that I heard with Bob Dylan a long time ago. He somebody asked him how he went about the work of composing, and he said something like this. He said, "Oh, it's not work. I just pull it out of the air." Now I know that sounds kind of airy fairy, but that's kind of just a loose way of talking about the divine physics of us.
Yeah.
We can have a thought, see something, that we never saw before. It may not be pulling it out of the air, but it's like that.
Well, that's certainly my experience. My experience of anxiety, my experience of post-traumatic stress disorder, flashback type symptoms. Yeah, I just had in both of those, I'm separating them, even though they're kind of part and parcel of the same thing, manifestation of grief, whatever. I had two new thoughts which changed my relationship, both with my anxiety and with the flashbacks that I experienced for over 20 years. And that came from where? Like,
Ta-da!
yeah. Woohoo! So what was what were you like before you came across this understanding, and how has it impacted your life?
I was still me. I was
I love
I am the me I was as a baby. So is everybody. Um, I just didn't know. You know, I have a bumper sticker that I actually haven't put on my latest car, but it says, "Don't believe everything you think." Now, when I was a baby, um, I didn't have prejudices. I didn't have insecurity. I didn't have opinions and learned attitudes and all that. I had to be taught to think the way I thought.
Mm.
And like everybody else, the teachers I had didn't know how their minds worked either, but they did teach me the best they knew.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that was workable and pretty useful. Some of it, not so much, but it was the best they knew. So I grew up believing everything I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, it didn't include thinking homicide was a good idea or, whatever. But it was certainly limited. But when for one thing, I used to get, like, before I learned what I know now, I wouldn't have done this.
No, me either.
I would have um, hid under a rock for a year to get out of doing this. But um, because I made myself insecure, I
Mm-hmm.
believed all these thoughts. Oh, whatever. What it was, I just would have done that. But I also had moments like everybody has had. I had moments of clarity where I, I saw the beauty of just being. I wouldn't have called it that. But I remember once when I was about probably 35 or something. I'm 81 now, in case that's of any interest to anybody, but it was a long time ago. I was about 35, I think, and it was fall here in Minnesota, and the leaves were changing, and I was driving to work. I worked at a children's hospital at the time. I was driving to work, and I was driving down this street where the leaves were just astonishing. It had just rained, but the sun was out, and it looked like jewels in all the leaves, and it just took my breath away, and I pulled over, and I just was full of whatever. There was so much beauty. I just didn't know what to do with it. And I'm never going to forget that. But I didn't know at the time that that's what it feels like to just for a moment get out of your head. And that's what you see. I went to work that day, or that route every day. And that There was the same trees, same sun, same everything, but I didn't see it. I might have seen it, but I didn't see it. And once I learned, once I learned how we're made and how we are all creating our moment to moment experience of life ourselves. It isn't coming from out there.
Mm.
Once I learned that, I remembered that day and I thought, whoa, that's what that was. That was me out of my head and in the moment.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, could that just be ordinary? And then I remember thinking, it is to babies. You know, unless they're hungry or in pain, they're just, wow. They're in that wow. So I'm not there all the time. I'm not even
Mm.
close to all the time, but I'm not very far.
Mm.
And and I know that the only thing between me and that experience is one thought.
Mm.
Doesn't matter what it is. It's none of my business what I was thinking that made me less than being present. I can't be farther than a thought because there's only now. There's only now. It's important to see that there is only now. The past doesn't exist. It's just our story. And we don't even know if it's accurate. But it's stored thought. It doesn't exist. The future, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it's never shown up. Ever. But we spend a lot of time imagining outcomes and then feeling as though they're actually happening. But it's only happening in our head now. Once you once you kind of realize that, it's like it's not too big a bite to see that how do I want to feel right now? Never mind 5 minutes ago, 50 years ago, tomorrow. Now's enough. And all that. So the original question is what was I like before? I didn't know that. So not knowing all that made life problematic. I still had lots of wonderful times. I I but I pretty much thought the wonderful times were coming from the outside.
Yeah.
That I had more wonderful times when I had enough money to take care of my kids. I had more wonderful times when I was hanging out with nice friends. I had more wonderful times when I was healthy, and when I had much more wonderful times when I wasn't worrying about not having wonderful times. So it's like everybody else. I'm just like everybody else. I'm not any, I'm not some special person that's made differently. I'm just probably a reasonably okay example of somebody that knows how their mind works.
Yeah, and I think that's why I asked the question, because I do these interviews quite a lot, and it's always interesting, I think, to the listener, because this is a new paradigm, and well, fairly new. I mean, you've been in it for.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's something that people who were coming from their wisdom since time began knew.
Yeah.
There was a, I'm not going to get this accurate, but there's a quote. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember it. The quote by Marcus Aurelius. He lived a long time ago, like before Christ. And one of the quotes he said is, just because there are birds circling over your head doesn't mean you need to let them nest in your hair. Now, if that isn't about thought, I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. Or he also said, the one I can't remember verbatim is something about the happiness in your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Duh. And there have been people, many people over the years that um, have taught the same thing.
Yeah.
The Buddha, Christ, most children.
Yeah. I think what I meant by new paradigm, I guess, is that was absolutely the wrong language. You're right. I think for
All right, I'm
me,
sorry. I didn't mean to correct you. I want to stop. I want to stop people thinking I know something new. I do not.
yeah, I think from my point of view, it was years of seeking and studying, popular psychology,
Yeah.
self-help, spirituality, and this was the first understanding that I saw something insightfully for myself, which led me to really understand all the other stuff, which hadn't made sense to me until, I hadn't heard it, I hadn't seen it for myself.
And what
So,
you really heard was you.
yes, and my wisdom. And then I had like a domino effect where was able to reflect back on all the times that I'd heard it and ignored it. Uh, and so
Yeah.
in that, I sensed my resilience, which I didn't know I had.
Yeah.
I just
Me
didn't
too.
know I had that.
It's like I remember. I have a granddaughter that's in her late 30s now, but when she was about 15, I think she was about to get her driver's license, and I had just gotten a new car, and it was a little red. Uh, it's kind of a sports car thing. It was a cute little car, and we were riding in it, and we were just talking about pretty soon she was going to be able to drive, and I said, well, that's cool. We'll go on a trip. We'll go someplace, and you can drive. And then she was talking about all these gadgets in my car, and I said, yeah, but it doesn't have a cup holder, and you'd think, I mean, don't all cars have cup holders? It doesn't have a cup holder. And she looked at the dashboard, and she went, poked at the dash, and out came a cup holder. I'd had that car for a year. I didn't know there was a cup holder there. I could have looked in the owner's manual, but did I? No, I didn't do that. We're like that. We have all kinds of gadgets and apps built into us, and we didn't know it. And this understanding is the owner's manual.
Yeah. And thank God for it, is all I can say. I mean, thank God I feel so lucky I mean, you call it divine intervention. For a long time I just called it fluke. I kind of see it now as divine intervention, but I feel very, very lucky that
Me too.
I get to talk to people like you. I get to help people wake up to the truth of that. And sometimes it's very difficult for people to see. I don't know if you find their egos, and mine did, for a long time, just like, no, I am broken. You sort of fight for their limitations. How do you?
Okay. We're just, it's really not our job to make anybody understand this.
Hmm,
It's our job to
Listen.
take care of our own state of mind, and share the best we know with anybody that's interested.
Mm.
But the interest doesn't, we can't provide the interest.
Oh no, I mean I'm talking, like I have people come to me and they've listened to me, so there's something in what I've said that's resonated. I'm not kind of, although I'd love to, shouting it from.
Yeah, if loudness made more sense, I'd be louder, but
Yeah,
doesn't work.
loudness doesn't make more sense. Loudness was the other stuff that I would listen to that was in my face all the time.
Well, there have been lots of people that, once you get to be this age and whatever you're doing, you've been doing a lot of it. So um, I remember a young kid, he's a teenager, his parents had dragged him in to see me. So that's not always a good way to start. But
Mm.
um, I just asked him, I said, was it your idea to come here? Because it sure didn't feel like it. And he said, no. And I said, oh, okay. Well, um, your parents are paying for this. So how about if I just tell you how I work? And if you want to come back, come back. But otherwise, don't worry about it. And you could just see, it's like the air going out of a balloon. It was like, oh, great. She isn't going to try to talk me into anything. So I did. I just told him how I worked and what I taught people. Because it wasn't, I had nothing at stake in this.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
so he didn't come back until about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years later. He called and he said, this is so and so. And for some reason, his voice or something, I remembered it, even though I'd only seen him. So he said, that stuff you were telling me that day, could you run that by me again?
Oh.
Sure. So he came in and um, then he stuck with it and he made some wonderful changes for himself. It was just great to see him. But when you just meet somebody and you show up with respect for who they are and what they're ready for and what they're not, and you meet them where they're at, and you don't take responsibility for whether they're interested or not. There's a way that it's kind of like a time release capsule, that a
Mm.
seed gets planted,
Yeah.
and if it was planted with care and respect, there's a good chance it's going to sprout.
Mm. And I love the plant analogy anyway, because that's, I love being in nature. I love talking about being in nature. I think the fact that our immune system is benefited by being out in nature, just from the plants and trees communicating with our own system. I think that feeds into planting a seed, but also the divine engineering that
Isn't
you
it
speak to.
great to realize that we are nature?
Hmm.
We're never not in nature.
Mm.
We are
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah. And for a long time, I thought I was on my own, battling my own, battling away. So I could probably talk to you all night, Mavis, but I have 3 questions that my audience have asked me to ask you, and I would love to be able to ask you. So is that okay?
I'll give it a stab.
So the first question, a lot of my ladies in my community have issues around their body weight and you know, what they look like. So the first question is from Hannah, and she says, what do you do? What can I do when I'm caught up in bad thinking about my body and my weight?
Could you say that again? I didn't get the first part.
Yeah, of course. It's what can you do when you're caught up in bad thinking about your body and your weight?
Huh. Um, Probably the same thing as you do about bad thinking about anything. You just realize that's all it is. You're just using your thinking in a way that isn't useful to you. And it has nothing to do with what you weigh, what you look like, has nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing. It's it just looks like if I gave you a contract to sign and it said, I, your name, promise I am never going to be happy until my body looks the way I want it to look. Will you sign it? I wouldn't if I were you. And if you took it to your lawyer, they'd say, really? You want to, you really want to sign that? And we make contracts like that all the time.
Mm.
That we think, well, I just can't relax and I can't be happy and I can't enjoy myself until I have exactly the right amount of money, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's some number we've made up on the scale, some number we've made up about money.
And that thought doesn't just occur to people that have very little money.
No,
That
I know.
same thought can be used over and over and over again with people that have billions and billions and billions of dollars. So it's a thought, it's a contract they signed with themselves that they didn't even know they were signing. But they believed they could not feel the way they wanted to feel until something on the outside changed, whether it was the way they looked, or whether it was their past, or whether it was the neighborhood they lived in, or the job they had, or whether somebody else loved them the way they wanted to be loved. It doesn't matter what contract they signed. It's a barrier to being yourself in this moment, which is always enough.
That is a fabulous answer. I know that the lady that asked the question is actually watching, so yeah, I hope that you heard something in that, Hannah. I've got two more questions from Sarah. And the first one is, how do you stay strong and continue to trust that the universe has your back when you are thrown more life-changing situations than a person deserves?
I don't think about myself that way. I just know that I just know that whatever comes up, I'll know what to do. I don't know ahead of time because I don't know what's going to come up. I don't have the experiences that I'm going to have in my memory.
Mm.
So I don't know. Personally, I don't have my memory to help me know what to do. But I do know, and I've had lots of experiences now, because I know that I have a deeper built-in common sense and wisdom that allows me to know in the moment what the next right step is. Now that's true about us all, whether we think it is or not. It's not that it's not true if we don't believe it. It's true anyway. That's how we're made. It's kind of like gravity. Gravity is another law of nature. And we are all subject to gravity. Everything is subject to gravity. There are no exceptions. Even the tiniest little feather is subject to gravity. So the law of nature that we have a built-in intelligence that has nothing to do with what we've learned personally is true, whether you believe it or not. You're subject to gravity, whether you believe it or not.
Yeah. So for that, you're saying, you're subject to being able to trust that you know what to do, even if, as the question, as Sarah has says, you are thrown more life-changing situations.
I would ask her if she ever had a situation or something happened to her that at the time seemed just god awful, and then it turned out to be fortunate. It was like a fortunate misfortune that you got something out of it, or something didn't happen because of that was positive. That's happened to me so often. I remember not getting a job I thought I needed in order to take care of my kids. And had I gotten that job, I wouldn't have gotten the one that got offered to me a month later. That was something I really wanted to do and paid me more money than the other one would have. It was a fortunate misfortune that I didn't get that first one.
That makes sense to me. I mean, I sometimes struggle with that. Well, it takes me a long time. I think I'm not sure I'm going to be very articulate here, but when my brother died, that didn't feel like a happy occurrence in any way, shape, or form. And I know you've spoken about grief, your own grief. But when I kind of reflect back on my life, I don't think I'd be doing the work that I do. I wouldn't have come across this path, I don't think. So it feels like it's all, I don't know, slotted in reverse, even though it didn't make any sense to me at the time.
When someone close to us dies, we shouldn't have any judgment about how we feel.
No.
It's just some days we'll feel devastated. Some days we'll feel sweet sorrow. Sometimes we'll feel gratitude for having had the person in our life, and then we'll go back to devastated, all over the place. But in the end, you'll realize that the way that you're experiencing that situation is changing all the time, depending on how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, that's it.
And it's not that you shouldn't think about it. It isn't that. Of course you're going to think about it. But you just start realizing, wow, some days I feel this, and sometimes I forget it. And I go about my life and I forgot, oh, my brother died. Oh my God, that's terrible. I've already forgotten him. No, that's not what happened. Your thinking is just changing all the time. And there isn't anything wrong with any of it. And you'll see that when you understand where your experience of your moments come from. They come from your thinking. You don't want to judge yourself for any of it. And as the more you know that, the more that person's life and your relationship with that person is more important than the fact that they're not there anymore. But you want to keep judgment out of it.
Okay, cool. That's. I think Sarah's also watching this, so although it's not grief, her situation is. I think that will be helpful. I think it's just that it's knowing that it's always fluid, always changing, always moment to moment. Her last question was, and the last question was, what would be your best advice to a person who is new to this understanding?
My best advice to them? I don't know if I have any advice to them. I think that even if anyone doesn't believe it, I would ask people to consider, not necessarily believe it, just consider the possibility that there might not be anything wrong with you, that there never was anything wrong with you, there's never going to be anything wrong with you. You have never done anything more than the best you knew at the time, even if the best you knew at the time wasn't that good, didn't turn out too well. But the point is, there's nothing wrong with anyone. There's a lot wrong with some of the behaviors that we have that are based on the beliefs that we have. But we are not our beliefs.
Mm.
We are absolutely pure potential that thinks and is capable of realizing they think. That's who we are.
That's brilliant. So, Mavis, lovely Mavis, you and lovely Grace Kelly are about to embark on a 7-month, but once a month, something wonderful for 90 minutes a month. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about it?
Well, it's kind of like this. We just get together with whoever shows up and meet them where they're at. And we'll do our best to pass on the best we know. And to tell you the truth, there's a secret here. I got a secret to tell you. I learn as much from doing this as I hope people learn from having me do it. Because there are lots of people, lots of times that ask questions that I've never heard before. And in order to answer them, I can't go into my personal thing. So I trust that the answer will come to me. And when it comes to me, I know this is going to sound weird, but when it comes to me, it's like I heard it for the first time. And sometimes it's like, who said that? It's not my personal intellect answering it. But see, I trust that what I know is a way bigger deal than what I think.
I absolutely agree with you. That's absolutely my experience of working with people, of doing these, of doing solo ones. You know, I always trust that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing it otherwise, because it's not for me, it's not a top down thing. It's like, well, hello, fellow human being, what's up? Let's talk about what we know and what we don't know. And I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, whether it was doing it this way or just with your friends and your children and just show up and be, just be together.
Mm. And Grace is, Grace Kelly. And for in terms of the podcast, the timing of this podcast is February 2021 now. And you and Grace are going to be starting tomorrow, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. Grace is I find an exceptional teacher, and has just gone through something extraordinary. And I think together the two of you are going to be wonderful, truly wonderful. So if anyone listening now or later wants to get in touch with me, please email me and I will forward you the information about the 7-month, once a month, I guess, connecting to your wisdom and who you actually truly are underneath this noise. Even if it's just for once a month, that's got to be a gift to yourself, especially as it's nearly Valentine's Day, right? Let's just give a gift to ourselves, right? Rather that than a pair of red knickers.
Isn't this remarkable that, like, the pandemic, talk about a fortune from misfortune, is that I've been able to talk to people from all over the world sitting here in my great granddaughter's bedroom. Wow. I talk to people individually, I talk to them in groups, it's just amazing that I'm saving a lot of gas going to an office. It's like, now I'm not grateful for the pandemic.
No.
I'm just saying, out of misfortune can come fortune. And we should keep our eye on it.
Yeah. Well, the fact that so many people have got to hear your voice, I think, is definitely fortunate.
When they hear my voice, if it lights up something inside them, it's what was always there. I didn't put it there. I'm just speaking to who you are from who I am. And that's enough for both of us.
It is. And I think that actually is the perfect place to call it a day. So I am going to say thank you to the ladies who are watching. Thank you for your comments. Just to tell Mavis that Habir and Heidi have left some lovely comments on the group, and so has Hannah, whose question you answered. I can't show you the group, but I promise you they're there, and I think the ladies have loved every minute of it. And I want to thank you myself, because this is a third time I've had the privilege of talking to you, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Thank you so much. I'm going to press stop on here, but you just stay there for a second. But thank you guys, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, thank you for being here live if you were live, thank you for asking the questions. And if you want to talk to Mavis and Grace about their upcoming program, please just email me or send me a message and I'll let you know about it. All right, lots of love. Mwah. Bye. Bye, Mavis.
Bye.